Welcome. Today, we want to teach you the anatomy of a resume. It sounds so simple, but there are changes that have taken place, probably quite a few since the last time you wrote a resume.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So let's dive right in.
Yeah.
Let's begin with the heading. That's up at the
It
top.
sounds so simple.
Yep.
But the heading is a really important piece. It's the first thing people see.
Right.
So obviously you want to put your name, but there are things to think about.
Mhm.
If you are divorced, do you include your prior married name? If you're married, do you include your maiden name? And the general rule is any name that's going to make you recognizable, you want to use. So sadly, even if you're divorced, you might want to put that last name in parentheses if people will know you as that person.
Right.
Another important thing is to put your degrees. So if you have a lot of degrees and maybe some of them aren't really relevant to what you want to do, no. But if you have an MBA and you're going into a business role, yes. If you have a CPA and you're an accountant,
Right.
if you have an MSW and you're going into a therapeutic practice, those designations that you don't want to make me have to wait until I get down to your education section to figure out.
Exactly. What about things like your LinkedIn profile? If you have that
Yep,
and you want to
yep.
link to that, live links,
So,
things like that.
Yep. So the top line is your name, and then underneath it, phone number, cell phone number. And you don't need to put cell phone :number. Everybody knows what a cell phone number looks like. A live link
Mhm.
to your LinkedIn and a live link to your Gmail or your email. But there is an argument for using a Gmail only because it's really practical for most companies are using the suite. So, but that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But those three things should be there, not your address though.
Right.
So this is two things. One is it's just kind of a safety thing.
Mhm.
We're talking to a mostly female audience. You don't want your resume to have your phone, your address on it. But also, you don't want to limit yourself geographically
Right.
because so many roles now
Or
can
remote.
be done
Mhm.
hybrid or remote. They may not be advertised that way, but if you say you live in Phoenix and the job is in Tampa,
Mhm.
they're not going to look at you.
Right.
So heading, name, designation, and then those three things: phone number, LinkedIn link, and Gmail or email link.
Right. Okay. So let's move on. Excuse me. Let's move on to the next section. And that is your profile statement. Now, this used to be like objective. Yes. Remember?
Are you?
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
That was just me.
Oh, yeah. That was like completely at the top.
And so the objective used to say, this is what I want.
Right.
And it's been replaced by the profile statement or summary statement or about statement, whatever you want to call it, that says, this is what I can do for you. This is who I am and what I can do for you. So it's much more customer focused,
right,
as opposed to, okay, this is what I want.
Right. And we're going to do a whole other video on the ins and outs of profile statements. So be sure that you look for that, because we're going to really dive into that to help you understand how to write a good profile statement.
But I would say the argument for the profile statement, and I maybe should have said this at the very beginning. Your resume only gets about a 6 to an 8 second look.
Right.
So not everyone's going to read that profile statement, but that profile statement is what you need to be able to write so you understand who you are, what you do. But it also, and you'll learn this in the next lesson, is very portable. It's going to help you through a lot of other things that you're going to need to do later. Right. So that begins right after your heading. You have that statement.
Right. Okay. So then we have our skills section, and this can get a little confusing about
for sure
what is actually a skill that you list on your resume. So talk about that.
So my general feeling is that we all have many things. You and I do like we do, you do financial stuff. I do legal stuff. Neither one of us is at all accredited or equipped with doing that, but we do it because we're a small business. So what you can do is different from what you do exceptionally well. So that skills section, and preferably it's bulleted so it's easy for me to read. That should just be the 4 to 8 things that you do really well and that you want to continue doing. Yeah. So if you're looking at this new role and maybe it's a slight pivot, or maybe you're moving up in the organization, you don't want to write down the key skills that are relevant to those other jobs you don't want. Right. Okay. Now, what you were mentioning, which is a very good point, is what is a skill? Right. A skill is something that's learned, not a quality, not a way of doing work, not something that's universal, like detail orientation. Let's give a couple of examples of what is a skill and what is more of a quality. Right. So a skill, let's talk about human resources. A skill is recruiting and staffing. I know how to do that. A quality is people person. A marketing job. A skill would be content creation across platforms. A quality would be good communicator,
team player,
any of those, mission driven, servant leader, all of those things are kind of the way you do things. They're not hard skills. And the problem is you may include all of those things, those harder skills, but then if they're obscured by all of the other things, I don't look, which is why I usually say 4 to 8 is kind of the sweet number. Most people are somewhere around 6 or 8, because then that's a couple of columns I can look at easily, as opposed to 25 things. And then it also becomes suspect, because when I'm reading a resume and I see my expertise is all 25 things, it's just not true. We're just not expert at that many things. So focus on those things that matter to you, and or more important, what matters to that person reading your resume.
Okay, great. All right. So once we've moved through that, let's talk about the experience section. And notice I'm not saying professional experience or volunteer experience. I'm just calling it experience. So we want to talk through that bit.
So we espouse a strategy called blended experience. If you are someone like many of our visitors are, who's taken a career break and you've got maybe a 10-year gap at the top of your resume since the last time you had a job in your field in a corporation or big organization. You want to blend your experiences so that your resume doesn't start in 2010. You want it to start now in 2023. So you want to have something to cover that gap. So the blended experience says any experience you've had during that period of time, whether it be one-off jobs that you do once a year to do at a trade show, or when you audit your brother-in-law's manual every year, or I work for Kelley twice a year, helping her run her boutique, whatever it is, the gig work that you do, that might be very, very part-time, the volunteer work that you do, the treasurer of the PTO,
the head of the school board.
Exactly. Definitely any elected or appointed positions. So that piece becomes part of your experience. So instead of, as Kelley said, saying professional experience, we just say experience. Put it all in there.
And we have plenty of other content videos that are focused specifically on that gap filling,
on how to do that
experience section of your resume. So please go and check that out if that is you that we're speaking
to. Now, another piece of experience though, and I see this a lot, we see it with some of our students when they first come, is a functional resume, where I'm going to talk about all the things that I do and kind of a nice narrative. And then later I might show where I worked, but there's no connection between the two. And that's really hard. Like I see one of those, I just don't read it. It's too hard. Don't make me work that hard. So you really should follow the chronological resume, this kind of tried and true standard format of reverse chronology. And when you're talking about something you did, I know that you did it here, as opposed to I'm guessing where you did it.
Okay. All right, good. All right. So the next section is that education. It's so funny because back in the day, it was like objective, education, GPA. Those are the things that you put on there. So, so when we talk about that education section, that's your licensures, your certification. Is there any
your degrees?
Your degrees.
But I think there's an important point. Now, first of all, if you happen to have found us and you're 25 and looking for a first job, education can go above experience because you have more education than you do experience. I did have a client years ago who had a dual Ivy degree, but she was 50 and she wanted it at the top, and we were kind of getting in an argument about it. Bottom line is that after a certain point, probably after 30, definitely after 40, I don't care where you went to school. I don't care what your GPA is. Honestly, at that point, I don't really even care if you have an advanced degree, because I want to know what you've done. So the degree can be a differentiator, but you can't stand alone on it for very long, except maybe for the first 5 years after you've graduated from your program. So the education includes those very basic things, the degrees, location, and you know what? Even if you're 40 or 50 and you graduated, if you graduated summa cum laude, put it on there. But we don't need to get into degree and major and degree and non-major and all that. That's kind of parsing words that we don't really care about. Another thing that's helpful there is licensure. But sometimes we'll get students who come in and they list every LinkedIn course they ever took, every certification they ever got. So stick with the things that matter most to me, and maybe just put down, select advanced coursework in, or select online coursework in, and then kind of give me a general title. So instead of listing every marketing course you took, branding and marketing, human resources and organizational development, or whatever they are. All right.
And also, when we talk more about the profile statement, the profile statement can be a place where if you really wanted to
You can hint at it.
Yes, exactly.
You could say something like, exceptional academic pedigree.
Right.
That's going to make me want to look.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just to entice you.
Yeah.
To the bottom
Yeah.
of the resume.
Yeah.
All right. The last section that we kind of want to cover is the other section.
Yeah.
So it's not titled other, but what would fall under that category?
So for people who are writers, if writing is a big component of the job and you're published, you could have a section called publications.
Yep.
And again, this is another place to use live links to show, so I can just click on it and take a look. If you're someone who works in PR or you have a front of the room kind of job, very high senior executive job, anybody working in politics, you might want to have a media section where you're going to show examples of you being interviewed or you interviewing if you happen to be a journalist. Some people put an interest section. I have to tell you, back when I was in the corporate world, I always read that. Sometimes that's where you get your best conversation starter. Again, if you don't have room for it, don't force it in there. I mean, you want to make sure that the body of your resume is your core competencies, but it is a nice thing to stick in there if you can. So I'd say those were, and in all of those areas, not just in publications and not just in your contact information, use live links. So when you're doing your experience section, make sure that if you're listing the name of your company, especially if it's not something I'm going to recognize, live link it to their website.
Right.
Instead of having to put a paragraph describing what the company does, that allows me as the interviewer or the reader or the resume reader to click on it and say, oh, that's where that company is. That's what they do. That's a really helpful. The other thing is you need to remember that and this is growing as we get older, about 50%, if not more, of the readers of a resume are never going to print it.
Right.
So take advantage of the opportunity to really engage with them by providing live links.
Right. Okay. And also in that other section, you would put potential hobbies or
interest. Interest could be hobbies. Let's say you are someone who's making a pivot and you took a career break, but you have enough work experience, enough relevant work experience, or you just took a 2-year COVID break.
Right.
You don't really need to cover a 2-year COVID break. And we've talked about that in an earlier video if you want to look it up. But you may have some community experience that you're really proud of that you want people to know about. So that other section could just become a community experience section where you include other things that you volunteered in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you have it, the anatomy of a resume. We actually have a really great freebie that we want to offer you all. It's called our resume checklist.
Yeah.
And it is something that could be a really helpful tool to you as you navigate writing your resume.
Yeah, it's a great way for you to just check the box to make sure that you've done everything you're supposed to do. So if you like what you saw today, please join our list so we can give you our new content every Monday. You can find us on www.preparetoLaunchU.com. We're on all social, and we look forward to connecting with you and engaging with you.